All these patients complaining they can't get their medicines. Insurers and PBMs are often owned by the same giant company, so middlemen, like me, decide what medicines you can get and how much you pay. But don't worry, if your prescription gets denied, we know another one that works for us. I mean, you.
Washington should stop PBMs and insurers from driving up drug costs. Learn more at phrma.org/insurer costs. Paid for by Pharma.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
From San Diego, California, this is the Frug Life Podcast, the show that teaches you how to save, invest, and earn money. Now here's your host, Mr. Frugal himself, Ricky Hershey.
Welcome to the Frug Life. Today we have a special recording of the show featuring a guest, and it's been years since we've had a guest on the show, so this really is indeed special. Today we're going to feature Arden and her story about getting out of debt. You know, at times I think I'm a bit extreme, and I think Arden's story shows persistence and grit and is really awesome. So without further ado, here is Arden.
Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be speaking to you today. My name is Arden, and I'm a physician assistant. I'm also a mom. And not long ago, I graduated from PA school with over $150,000 of debt, and all of it was student loans from graduate school. I decided shortly after graduation that I was going to pay it off as fast as I could. And I ended up paying off the entire sum of $150K in just 16 months. Today, I'm going to speak with you guys about how exactly I did it and how you can achieve similar massive results for yourselves when it comes to your finances. I've broken down my exact debt payoff process into a 3-step system for you guys today, which I'll go over for you in detail in this episode. If you're in debt or looking for creative ideas to boost your income or reduce your expenses, this will be a great listen. So, step 1. Deciding if debt payoff is right for you. So let's start with, why did I want to pay off my debt in the first place? Because my interest rate was considered, quote, low, what led me to do the opposite of what expert finance advice would suggest and forego leveraging my debt for higher returns in the market. In the personal finance world, this is quite the faux pas, but like most of my major life decisions, it started with a spreadsheet. I sat down and calculated my net worth over the next 10 years if I pursued a traditional 10-year repayment plan. And I realized that I was going to have a negative net worth for years to come. It just didn't make sense to me that I would be going out to eat or upgrading my apartment or going on vacation, all while having a massive negative net worth. At the same time, I would be telling myself that because I was investing, I would be building wealth or on the path to wealth. Frankly, I did not want to have to wait half a decade to finally have something to show for all of my hard work. If you're listening to this, try this exercise. Project your net worth 5 or 10 years with your current repayment plan. Then ask yourself, how does that feel? You know, you might be surprised by the numbers. If you're in debt right now and you're looking to kind of get clarity on your net worth or your payoff timeline, I actually have a free Debt Freedom Starter Kit. It's at she'sfinanciallyfree.com/starter kit. It's actually a mobile app that I designed when I was paying off my debt for my own use, and now I've shared it with the world. And then I also have a budget sheet in there and some motivational screensavers and just some extra goodies. So definitely download that if you're interested in starting your debt payoff journey or just seeing if it would make sense for you financially. That's she'sfinanciallyfree.com/starter kit. So the issue with traditional advice is that it doesn't factor in the option to work extra hours or drastically cut your expenses for a short period of time to meet a very specific goal. And that mathematically wins out every single time. Traditional advice also doesn't factor in the emotional cost and anxiety of carrying over 6 figures of student debt for years, nor does it factor in the cost of having to reduce your expenses, say no to things, cut your lifestyle, simply to make these large monthly payments. Also of note is that removing debt payments from your monthly budget, which are often one of the highest fixed expenses that people have, does more to move the needle on your finances than 100 other money-saving techniques ever could. So it's really about thinking about where can you really move the needle most effectively. And for most of us, that comes down to our debt payments, which are so large in our monthly budget. If you're in debt right now, this is really something to consider. Debt takes more than money away from us in the form of interest. It limits our options for what we can spend money on, how we spend our time, the quality of vacations that we take, and it limits even way bigger life decisions like our career choices, whether or not we change careers, whether or not we are able to drop down to part-time, or maybe take more time when we have young children, to even buying a home. So debt affects really minor and major aspects of your life if you have it, even if you're getting higher returns in the market. So it's very well worth taking a look at our finances and seeing what a massive difference even reducing your debt by 20% could have on your finances. So step 2, reducing my expenses. So this was a key part of my debt payoff plan. I had to really cut my expenses down as much as I could. So I allowed myself 3% of my take-home pay after taxes as like fun money to do with whatever I wanted. And then every other dollar went to life-sustaining essentials only or debt payoff. And so that little 3% trick kind of prevented me from completely losing my will to live as I was paying off this massive amount of debt. So in order to figure out what expenses I could cut, I got out my bank statements. I recommend, grab 1 month or even 2 or 3 of your bank statements to be more accurate. And I went through line by line and highlighted everything I could cut or reduce. I switched from contact lenses to glasses. I started eating the free lunches at my hospital every day, even though they weren't that great. I stopped highlighting my hair and I started cutting it at home. Results may vary with that one. I called my car insurance company and asked for a cheaper rate. I was able to cut $15 off my rate per month with a 10-minute phone call. And I also canceled every subscription I had. I had like a gym membership, an online yoga subscription, all the streaming services. So I cut everyone except for one, and that was Netflix. And that's because I couldn't be expected to work these kind of hours in the throes of selling Sunset Withdrawal. I also stopped all investing, including my company's 401k match, which would have been 3%. So why would I do that? Well, first, I knew that 2 years of compound interest would be pennies compared to paying off $150,000 of debt. And to me, investing simultaneously would have violated a kind of principle I held, which is that debt should not be comfortable and you shouldn't try and make yourself feel better about it. Did it feel terrible to not invest? Of course. Did it feel terrible to miss, quote, free money in my company's match? Yes. But to me, it should have felt terrible. The reality of the situation for me was terrible. I was completely broke. So getting my company's match and telling myself that I was getting ahead, instead of putting that money towards debt payments, to me would have been misleading myself in a way and kind of denying the reality of the situation, which is that I wasn't getting richer by investing 3% that year. I should have been focusing everything on my debt. And to that same end, the more it bothered me to be missing this match and not investing and to have that kind of reality weigh on you every day that you're broke, the more it motivated me to get out of debt as fast as I possibly could. To be honest, these sacrifices were relatively easy for me to make, much easier than you might expect. I knew that they were all temporary. I knew that I could resume them as soon as I was out of debt, which would be in 1 to 2 years. And because the more I cut, the sooner I was done, it was actually easier to do because it was like an immediate reward for cutting these expenses. I was able to work overtime and live like this for a shorter amount of time, the deeper I sacrificed. I also had a really compelling vision of being debt-free and what that would feel like to be out of debt completely, done with payments, and that really kept me going, even if the sacrifices that I had to make were extreme for the time being. What also helped me was my next point that I'll get to, which is that I spent most of my free time working. And so I didn't have a lot of opportunity to spend a lot of money because I was at work often. So step 3, increase your income. By far, the biggest contributor to my debt payoff journey was increasing my income. I mean, there's only so low you can go with expenses. So my starting PA salary was $110,000, which is fairly standard for the area that I was in. I was in the Washington, D.C. area. So my first attempt to increase my income was to get overtime at my current job. And if you're listening to this, that is often the most lucrative strategy for you as well, because I'm going to guess that your current job is the highest paying job for you out there. And the goal really with massive debt payoff like this is to be making as much as you possibly can per hour so that you can work overall fewer hours to meet this goal. So if you're able to pick up more hours or even an overtime differential at your current job, that's what I would do. Since I was a new grad at the time, I wasn't in a position to ask for a raise, but that's what I'd recommend to you if that applies. Sit down with your boss and tactfully state the value that you bring to the company and how you'd like your pay to be updated to reflect that. This is probably the single most impactful thing you can do to positively influence your finances because your salary compounds over time, just like investments do and just like debt. Since I had run the numbers, I knew that if I worked 80 hours a week, so roughly 2 jobs, I could be debt-free in 2 years. So this timeline really kept me motivated. I had a very concrete timeline, a very concrete end date, a light at the end of the tunnel, if you will. So I knew that if I worked even more than that, if I could push it to 90 plus hours, which I eventually did, I would be able to become debt-free even sooner. So I was applying to every job I possibly could, probably 30 jobs or more even per week using Indeed. I reached out to my alma mater to ask if they had any open positions, and they did. Flyers in my apartment complex offering, house cleaning, dog sitting services, and my building management promptly ripped them down from the walls. But before they were able to do that, I got a job from it. So I was able to actually dog sit while I was taking virtual appointments and kind of make money from 2 incomes simultaneously. So finding additional employment, especially as a new grad PA, took a lot of time and effort. I would get interviews, but then the schedule wouldn't line up with my current job, or they had a rule that they didn't hire new grads. And since I was a new grad, I had no experience, which meant that I would require a lot of on-the-job training up front, which is not very appealing to employers, especially for part-time work or PRN work in the healthcare industry. So that was kind of stacked against me. So in the meantime, while I waited to find other jobs, I was babysitting or dog sitting every minute that I could, even though I was only making, $20 an hour doing that. So it was painful to spend my weekends, my weekend nights instead of with my friends or with my boyfriend, going out and making $60 babysitting. But I was patient and pushed through while I waited for other PA jobs. So I was finally able to get a virtual job just through applying online, and then so was able to get 2 jobs through networking. So when I look back, networking was definitely my highest ROI method in terms of getting better employment and additional employment. So that's what I would definitely recommend for you if you're listening right now is network, especially now because programs like Indeed make it so easy to submit your application online. These employers get like hundreds of applications. It's basically a shot in the dark. So networking is a much better strategy in my opinion. So eventually I had a total of 3 clinical jobs as a PA and 1 job as adjunct faculty at my alma mater, the PA school that I went to. My schedule was pretty ridiculous looking back on it. I would wake up at 5 a.m., get dressed, brush my teeth, drive to my office where I would take virtual appointments for my first job from 6 a.m. until 9 a.m. I would then see my first patient in person at that office for job number 2, starting at 9 a.m. until 2 p.m. And then I would either drive or take the bus to my 3rd job, which was at a hospital where I would work from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. where I did psychiatric consults in the emergency room. And then I would get home around 11:45 p.m. and rinse and repeat. And I did this every day for months. And then sprinkled in there was my work teaching and grading for my alma mater as well. So I definitely couldn't have done this for longer than 1 to 2 years. But because it was such a short amount of time, it really didn't feel that unmanageable. All told, my total time working 90 plus hours a week was less than 12 months. So my advice would be to be open to any and all work. Every dollar counts, but with the goal to get jobs making as much as you can per hour. The more you make per hour, the less you have to work to meet your goal, the sooner you're done, which obviously is what we want. That means targeting overtime differential if you're eligible, asking for a raise, and taking advantage of bonuses or other incentive programs, or even pet sitting while you work virtually like I did. Another tip, share your journey and goals with others. My coworkers were so motivated to help me and would often let me know first if they were posting an open shift that I could pick up to cover. And even better, I was able to inspire some of my coworkers and my classmates to pay off their debt as well. So really don't be shy. Let everybody know you're looking for work. Everybody wants to help, I think, on the inside. And so really appeal to people's inner nature, which, they want to help you meet your goals. And if you need help updating your resume, I would use ChatGPT as a good idea for that as well. I hadn't discovered it yet at the time, but looking back, I definitely would have used that to update my resume before applying online. So I know what you must be thinking after hearing all of this, that I must have been so miserable working like this, not going on vacation, not going out to eat. But to be honest, I really wasn't. It was honestly kind of fun to work towards such a unique and concrete goal. Debt payoff is a very unique goal because you get constant positive feedback in the form of paychecks. Like you're constantly making this visible concrete progress. And so it's actually much easier to stay consistently motivated with each week that goes by than for a lot of other goals that I've pursued that feel much longer and with a lot less emotional payoff. And so it was honestly, fun and exciting to make such concrete progress. And it really felt like a goal that I had a lot of agency over. When you're working longer hours and working harder or challenging yourself by choice, burnout is really avoidable, I've found. It's only when you're working long hours for someone else or by someone else's design, like in order to pay off your debt or, pay back your lender, burnout is hard to escape in those circumstances because it doesn't really feel like an intentional choice. And so by that logic, this strategy was really a form of burnout prevention for me. There's a very interesting mindset about specifically large amount of debts that I've encountered often. That's kind of that somehow you're spending money you don't have to if you're paying off your debt earlier, that it's a waste of money somehow. But the thing is that you will be paying back that debt. In fact, if you're in debt, you've already, quote, spent that money. You're just currently holding that money for the bank and storing their money in your own account. So the question isn't if you will spend, X amount of money to pay back your debt. It's just when you're going to do that and how much interest you're going to end up paying. But that money is coming out of your paycheck. If it's today, tomorrow, a year from now, or 10 years from now. I'm fortunate that I had a really supportive boyfriend during the time. We're now married, and I didn't have any kids at the time. And it would have been a lot more challenging to do this if I had had a daughter, because it would have been very difficult to take so much time away from her. So if you have kids, keep that in mind, that this might not be as realistic a plan for you. But if you don't have children, I really would consider paying off your debt early, because now I'm able to spend more time with my daughter at home. It's really opened up so many options for me that would have been very limited if I still had, a $1,800 monthly payment like I would have if I was still doing the 10-year plan. So if you want help getting started on tackling your debt, no matter how you plan to do so, please download my debt-free starter kit. It has a customizable debt payoff tracker, the mobile app that I use to get out of debt, the budget sheet that I use to pay off my debt. And within half an hour of downloading the starter kit, you'll have a clear snapshot of your debt, your payoff timeline, and your net worth as well. So if you're looking for a straightforward path, what the next best step for you is financially, download that starter kit at shesfinanciallyfree.com/starter kit. With social media and personal finance content everywhere, we're hit daily with so much, even contradictory advice. The best ETF, leveraging debt, the newest hack, the tiniest savings trick, backdoor Roth contributions. It's all there, and we're inundated with it all the time. And somewhere along the way, having more money can become the goal for a lot of us. But money is meant to optimize our life. We're not meant to optimize our money at the expense of our lives. So if you take anything away from this episode, ask yourself, what is your optimal life? What does it look like? How do you live? What does your career look like? What does your family life look like? What do your weekends look like? And then ask yourself, is my money truly aligned with that life? If you have debt, I sincerely doubt that debt payments are a part of that ideal life. And often debt, especially large amount of debt, like I had, over 6 figures, can feel like this, thing that we can't do anything about. And it's just not true. It's actually, we have much more agency over it than we realize. So remember that there are no neutral dollars. Every dollar we earn and spend is either moving us towards the life that we want or it's moving us away. So I'm so glad to have been able to speak with you today about this topic. My goal wasn't to impress you with my results, but to really impress upon you the possibilities that are available to you with a very simple debt payoff system. If you're so inclined, please visit my website, shesfinanciallyfree.com. It's a blog that I started during this journey. So there are a bunch of great finance tips there. Or even better, I'd love to hear from you if you want to email me. hello@shesfinanciallyfree.com. Let me know your thoughts on this episode or where you are in your debt payoff journey, or if you think that, my advice is completely crazy to pay off your debt like this. But either way, I hope to hear from you. And thank you so much for listening to my story today. And I really hope that no matter where you are on your personal finance journey, that you found this helpful or inspiring or informative in some way. Thank you so much.